With so many Americans reaching the age where retirement is a reality, Bruce Bruinsma wants to reform the way you look at your golden years. He's the founder of Retirement Reformation and believes that now is your time of greatest impact. Bruce, welcome to Real Life. So nice to have you on the program.
So good to be here.
Now, you come out of a career in financial planning. You were 30 years in that direction. What led you into this new direction that God has given to you?
One of the things that I realized after 30 years, and some of us it takes longer to learn things than others, your audience may relate to that.
Sure.
Is one of the things that I learned is that what our world says retirement is that it's one kind of long slog, and you're kind of going down physically and you're going down mentally, and then you die. And the goal is to jam as much leisure as you can into that period. It couldn't be more wrong.
That's right.
And as Christians, we need a reformation, a new understanding of what this time of life really looks like and what God is calling us to. One of the things that became so clear is that, retirement isn't just one period. It's got a series of stages to it. And those stages, now because of longevity, are really, really getting longer.
They certainly
and so
are.
now we can talk about retirement as being a 30-year period, perhaps, rather than when I was growing up, you worked till you were 65 and you died by 67 or 70 and you were really old. That's not true anymore.
Now tell me a little bit about Retirement Reformation.
Retirement Reformation, the goal is to start a movement. And a movement means that it will engage millions and millions of people. The 30 million Christians that are either now or in the process of coming into that retirement period. Matter of fact, the numbers are pretty staggering. Do you know that there's 10,000 people turning 65 in the United States every single day?
Oh my goodness.
As a matter of fact, when we look at our churches will be 30 to 40% people that will be over 65. And so as a matter of fact, I think it's maybe by the end of this year, next year, there will be as many people over 60 as there are under 18. So in our churches, we spend a lot of time on the young, and we should, because that's our future.
Right.
On the other hand, we've got millions of Christians that have a void in their lives that needs to be filled with meaning and purpose.
And are at the best point in their life to contribute. They have experience, they have energy, and they have time.
And they have money. They have all of those things.
Right.
And it's interesting that if you ask the average Christian in the pew, does God have a call on your life? Yeah, they're going to raise their hand and say, yes, they do. Unfortunately, the way we act as if he doesn't. Because the response of the majority of Christians, according to our research, when asked, what are you going to do in retirement? They come up with this astounding answer. Nothing. Matter of fact, let me just tell you one story.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a long flight from Tokyo to Dallas. And there was a gentleman sitting next to me, and usually I don't talk to people on those long flights, but I got talking to him, found out A, he was a Christian, B, he was a business guy, and in the conversation he said that he had sold his businesses about 6 years ago. And so with this topic in my mind,
Sure.
I said to him, so what have you been doing for the last 6 years? And he paused and he says, Bruce, honestly, nothing. And my question to him was, how's that working out for you? And his response was this. He says, not so good. He said, Bruce, I think I'm at the end of nothing. That was a major message to me, I think, from God.
That's right.
To be able to understand that that's where the average Christian is coming from, and that's the reformation that needs to be changed. Because living in a void without meaning and purpose, first of all, isn't much fun.
That's right.
Secondly, we know in an actual physical sense, it'll actually reduce our lifetime. And God has a call on our lives for each one of the stages. In this 30 years, it's got like 3 decades to it. Mm-hmm. So just think to yourself, what changes were in your life, if you're 50 or older, what happened in your life in the 30 years between 20 and 50? Anything change?
Everything.
Everything changed. You went through 3 major stages. You went from college or from graduating from high school and marriage and kids and so on. All that happened. What in the world leads us to think that in the 30 years between 60 and 90 or 65 and 95, or 70 and 100. What makes us think that there aren't going to be major changes there and that God doesn't have a plan for us? Of course he does. We just now need to be reformed, re-energized, repositioned, rethought about what that is, and to learn how to listen to God in that new time.
That's the key, listening to God.
It is.
Now, you've developed a manifesto, and I'd like to take a look at some of the specific points of your manifesto. This is a very powerful work that God has blessed you and the other team of contributors to this work. But one of the elements of this, one of the items, is preparation. I used to teach my boys when they were little that preparation is a prelude to results. This was in their sports training for baseball. But this very much applies to us in those years when God is going to be blessing us beyond perhaps retirement from our careers.
Matter of fact, we can even look at that in a bigger sense. When did God begin to plan your life? According to the scripture, the way I read it, it was in the eternity that existed before the beginning of time.
That's right.
So God had a plan for me, for you, for our audience, during this whole period, and it doesn't stop and it doesn't end. We know that without preparation, purpose isn't going to be there.
That's right.
And so the preparation that God has for you that started in your mother's womb, and then in all of that time period during this, is all part of the preparation for what God is now calling you to make a contribution to building his kingdom during these years that so many are leaving void.
Another area is stewardship. And in the biblical sense, stewardship, a steward, a true steward, would put his entire life in line with the will of the master. This applies to this idea of stewardship. Our entire lives, not just finances, but our entire lives, our gifts and our time.
As a matter of fact, one of the things that God's impressed me with is that, well, money's important, no question about it. And if you don't have any, it's a problem. And if you've got it, you've got some responsibilities. But really, in the retirement world, that should be the least important. It's where are we in our spiritual journey?
That's right.
Where are we in growing emotionally so that, in fact, we can deal with the difficult issues of life that perhaps when we were 30 or 40 or 50 we couldn't deal with, but we all have. And that now we have that opportunity to do it. So we got emotionally, we got physically, we got spiritually. All of those things are part of our journey, and ours the preparation and what we are responsible to steward to be able to help build the kingdom in unique and perhaps special and maybe new ways.
That's right.
During what the world calls retirement.
I like the element of love. My family's verse for this year, and our Cornerstone family's verse for this year, is from Matthew, that we will love the Lord our God with all of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength, and then to love our neighbor as ourself. This is an important part of these final phases of our life.
Well, when you look at the commandments that John gave his disciples and gave us, in John where he makes it very, very clear that love was number one. Demonstrating that love is how we reflect Jesus to the world, and then how that plays itself out uniquely during these periods of time. As a matter of fact, the verse that we've chosen for the retirement reformation it comes from John, and it's John 15:16. You did not choose me. You did not choose me.
That's right.
I chose you to bear much fruit. Fruit that will last. And anything you ask in my name, I will give you. And so this idea of love, this idea of being chosen, this idea of our response, and the fact that the result of that will be to bear fruit for the kingdom. That's pretty exciting.
Focus is another area in your manifesto, and an important area, because I believe that anything that is worth achieving or worth accomplishing requires our focus. Who are we that we can give 50% of our effort or 70% of our effort and expect to win?
The idea is intentionality.
That's right.
And so we know whenever we focus, and it may be focus in your quiet time, just simply reflecting and responding to God's Spirit in your life. There's a focus that will change your life. And then the next result of that, of what it is that you're paying attention to, and we know what we pay attention to is where the action will take place.
Absolutely. One last area that I want to talk about, you have it as advocacy, but I think of it as mentoring. I honestly am beginning to feel that now. I just have such a, and I'm in my decade of the 60s. God has very graciously blessed Lucy and I with direction in each of our decades. And in the 60s, I really have this sense of mentoring. I actually seek out young parents to try to share wisdom with them about our experience in parenting and other areas that we've already gone through. How important is it that we be advocates?
I think that advocacy, that mentoring, that coaching, that is critically important because you're never more prepared to do that when you've had all of your experiences of life. So there's actually 3 stages in retirement. One is very active, and that's that earlier period. The middle one we actually call mentoring. And so to actively look for those ways, whether it be with grandchildren, be with others in your church, or whoever God puts in front of you. And then there's a third stage also, which is reflective, and that has a sharing piece to go with it also. Take Billy Graham. He wrote his last book when he was 97, for Pete's sake. If that's not an encouragement to all of us, I don't know what is.
That's right. Thank you so very much, Bruce. I appreciate your ministry. I appreciate your focus. I appreciate the encouragement that you bring to us today. Thank you so very much.